Hey humans, Batsy here with the third episode of the One Chunk Challenge. Today we gonna jump straight into andesite alloys. We have all the basics we need to produce them, so that will be our goal for the day. Between episodes I have added few lights here and there, and a bit more decorations. Nothing too crazy, just some metal girders, and few other things to make it look slightly better. I'm happy with how things look so far. Sure, it's not the prettiest base, but considering how much create blocks there are around, and things we cannot modify, it does look decent if I do say so myself. Before we get into andesite stuff, I got a comment last episode saying I placed a link outside the border, and I'm pretty sure they are right, so let's fix that really quick. Yes, like they said, this is right outside the border, which is fine, we move it to the left side really quick. And now we have it all within the border. Perfect. Now let's get into more interesting stuff. I have displayed here the steps we're going to do today. We already have the cobblestone, and we also have the gravel. So now we need to crush up the gravel into sand, Haunt said sand to make souls and then wash that to get the quartz we need. With that we can start producing diorite, and andesite, and after that we can make the alloys with the iron we already have. Once all of that is done, we can make a tree farm, and that will give us the casings. It sounds like a lot of steps, but it's much easier than it looks. Since we already have things well organized, it's a matter of figuring out how to fit all the fans we need, so let's jump into it. The first thing we need is to crush the gravel into sand, that will also give us spare clay, and flint. At first I thought about washing the sand right away, so we don't use that much vertical space. Then I realized we aren't making a gold farm, we need to haunt it, not wash it. I like the idea of moving the items with a fan to reduce the vertical space, so I used that to push the items into the vault, which will also be useful to filter out the flint and clay later on. Next we take out the sand and haunt it along this line to make souls and I'm also gonna place another vault so we have some buffer. After that we make a new line to wash it down to quartz, and some spare gold that we're going to get every now and then, which of course we're going to use another vault as buffer and storage. I decided to leave a press in this corner to process the nuggets into ingots. This is where things start to get tricky. As I said before, I decided to have all of the fans together because it's easier to connect them all up, also because we don't really need to separate them, since the items won't mix up, even if they are this close together. The next step is to set up the mechanical crafters. I struggled to figure out where I wanted to place it down, but at the end I decided to make it as simple as possible. You can use funnels and mechanical arms, but because we just need one item at a time, I decided to work with normal hoppers instead. It's not the prettiest design, but it's as small as it gets, and it will work more than enough. Of course it's always good to test out the interactions, especially with Create, since we can make use of the creative blocks for testing. It looks like both hoppers fill up just fine. I decided to make a little diagonal here with the chute, so the cobble reaches the hoppers, and for now I'm going to place down a belt for the iron nuggets. We will see later on how we end up connecting all of this. I wanted to connect a few things up so we can start to see if everything is working or not, and also to get an idea of how much room we're working on, since this will start to get really crammed really fast. It takes a bit of time to figure out how to connect things up, especially with belts and things that need to rotate a specific direction, but I also think it's one of the most enjoyable parts of making contraptions with Create. It's a fun puzzle to figure out. With most thing connected, it was time to place down the filters. It's very important that all funnels are facing the right directions, and they all have their proper filters. Of course this would have been much easier to do earlier on, but I honestly just forgot to do it. After that I decided to place a new belt to burn the flint we're getting from both places. On Insight it was probably better to simply place lava in both places, but maybe we will use it later at some point. I figured out a funnel was wrongly placed, but having fixed that, the soles and started to show up, and everything else was working as intended. Now it was a matter of connecting the mechanical crafters, and we're finally producing some diorite. To make andesite we need the diorite that we just made, and the cobblestone we already have. Which of course we gonna do with a mixer, since the rates are better, and it's much easier to build around. Using the hoppers we already have in place, and one more for the diorite vault. Now we put the mixer, and it's as simple as that. To make andesite alloys we just need the andesite, and some iron nuggets we already producing, so it's a matter of placing down a new basin. Connecting it all up with some belts. The mixer to craft them up. And of course the rotational force in all belts and machines. Now that the iron nuggets are coming through, it's working perfectly. At this point I spent some time checking everything up. Making sure everything has a lever to turn it on and off, making sure everything is facing the right way, and belts are moving the right direction. I also decided to add the floor, and the next stop of the elevator, so we know how much room we're working with. All it's left now is to produce some wood, and make the andesite casings. I'm going to use this space for that, and of course we're going to make use of minecarts, since it's the best way to make a tree farm. I'm thinking of placing the rails along this line, and maybe have one row of grass in the middle, considering the volume of the leaves too. I'm actually going to bone meal one, see how it looks. Okay, so 2 blocks on each side seems to be enough. So I guess we place grass up to here. So I placed that wall to prevent the leaves on that side, and also placed some glass just in case, and because it looks neat, but I wonder if we can then raise a tree in the other wall too. We can. That's good, will mean a couple more trees then. I wonder the back wall too then, it will never grow leaves outside the border because of the stone anyway. Oh, this is perfect then, let's place 2 rows of grass. Now let's make the minecart contraption, which is incredibly easy to do. First we want the chassis along the farm. Then we place down the 2 mechanical saws on the sides of the trees, so it breaks them when the cart moves along. I decided to change the chassis with barrels instead. Then we need the item interface on the side. And to finish, we place down the 2 deployers on top of the barrels, so it replaces the saplings. Then we make sure everything is glued up together. Let's see if this works out. Okay, it seems to do perfectly fine, awesome. I decided to move this up by 1, so we can properly place the vault. And it seems like it's doing just fine. We will see if the rates are any good after a while. All it's left now is to make the casings, and it couldn't be any easier really. First I'm going to move this barrel to the side so we can output the andesite alloys. Next we're going to take out the logs, and strip them with the mechanical saw. It doesn't matter how to connect the belt into the saw, but it matters that the output of the block is facing the right direction. So I'm thinking this way will do. What I'm not convinced about is this L shape on the left. Think I'm going to connect it all the way into the wall instead. And maybe we go up this way so it reaches the deployer. I'm actually not very convinced about this. Right, so I adjusted the other belt, and now we can also place this one against the wall. So we just need to connect things up really quick. And that should be all really. So if we flick this lever, we should start getting some casings. Wait, we need to move the belt one more towards us. Now yes, it's working perfectly. What worries me is that these trees haven't grown a whole lot since we made this farm half an hour ago. I might need to Google see if there are conditions for trees to grow. Okay, so I did some research, and apparently they just need a light level of 8 to grow on their own, so I added those shroom lights underneath, but it still doesn't seem to do a whole lot, so maybe we will end up making a bone meal farm next episode. While I was waiting for the tree farm to work I took the time to decorate a little bit, mostly adding lights so it's not so dark down here, and I think with shaders it's looking pretty cool so far. This floor ended up being fairly spacious, all things considered. I also wanted to ask the humans if there is a better way to take out items from a vault, because I normally use this funnel into a chute and a barrel, but I really dislike it. It looks quite awful. I would love to hear better ideas to go about it. But this is going to be all for today. I hope the humans enjoyed the video. I sure did. Let me know if you would like me to make a bone meal farm, or what other things you would like to see me do for the next floor. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Take care everyone, and until the next one,